You are now tuned into the sounds of
Big Nate Sports Talk.
It's on all the time, anytime.
Tuned in to Big Nate Sports Talk, the show that is on all the time, anytime. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the next big thing, the latest up-and-coming sports journalist, your host, Nathan Snell.
And as always, thank you, Mr. Anthony Handy, for that wonderful introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is your host, Nathan Snell of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. This is episode number 373 of the podcast. Is that how many episodes we have, AJ? Wow, 373. I can't believe that. In this episode, I have a very special guest. We are talking, week one of the WNBA is off to a very, very fun and interesting start. I'm actually excited to see what surprises some of the games. But as always, too, there's one other person I can't forget to bring on the show, and that is my guy, Mr. Brenden Potts.
Woo!
Brenden, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Are you ready for this?
Dude, I'm so ready. Like the both the college basketball fan in me and the WNBA fan in me is really ready for this because it's gonna be awesome.
Absolutely. Really quick, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see a video of me recapping the Washington Mystics painfully losing to the New York Liberty in their home opener, and we're getting ready for Connecticut painfully tomorrow. But that's enough talk. Ladies and gentlemen, one half of Queens Off the Court podcast, the one and only Jordan Robinson.
Jordan, hey guys, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking some of your time. Ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Robinson, one half of Queens Off the Court with the great Cheryl Swoops. Jordan, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I am a sports journalist covering women's college basketball and the WNBA. I have been a host for Pac-12 Network, Women's Sports Network, Jordan Brand, a bunch of stuff, but all storytelling and wanting to make sure to put women's sports and WNBA players at the forefront.
Brenden, I'll give you the floor first.
Yeah, love your coverage of the Pac-12. I'm a big Washington State fan. The team would say I'm the biggest fan. So I love that. I loved when you were in Pullman and hanging with the girls. They're pretty fun, huh?
They're so fun. I played Coog with Charlize Ledger-Walker and Bella America-Tete. And I won, Brenden. I just want to put that out there. Yeah, they still haven't really given me all that credit. Bella wants a rematch, but I won. And so I'm taking that with me.
Good, yeah. So I beat Charlize in a free throw contest. She beat me the first time, and then I beat her the second time. And like you, I'm taking that to my grave.
Yes. I should put it on my resume, really.
Yeah, right. But no, in all seriousness, like, thank you so much for your coverage, not just your coverage, but Elise is also a friend of mine, and Ashley is also a friend of mine. Your coverage of such an amazing basketball conference, in particular, it has just been so wonderful, and I'm as upset as anyone that it's coming to an end. So as much as we're all upset about the athletes and the teams leaving the Pac-12, we also got to give our flowers to the people who have covered the Pac-12 and have done so much amazing work for, I believe, the best conference in the nation when it comes to women's basketball. So I just wanted to say that when I heard that you were coming on here, I'm like, oh, I got to give her flowers for covering such an amazing conference and doing such an amazing job.
Thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate it. You know, I always say 2023 was my Pac-12 year because I got on and was so excited, and then it ended in the same year. So it was so short-lived. And you mentioned, you know, Elise Woodward, Ashley Adamson, they have been there from the beginning and have really
Cindy Brunson too.
Sydney Brunson, just a lot of great talent, not only on the broadcast side, but like you said, on the court too. The best conference for women's basketball, top to bottom. There's no other conference that was playing top 10 teams, you know, night after night. And now I'm selfishly happy that some of those teams in the transfer portal, Kiki Ariapin coming to USC, Talia Von Oelhoffen coming to USC. I'm in LA, so Charlize coming to UCLA.
Charlize, yeah.
So I'm like, okay,
so
you guys just can't get enough of me. Is that why you guys are coming to LA? But I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I love that. I love all those moves too. I don't think I ever told you that I got to go to the Pac-12 tournament in Vegas when WSU won it, and I got to be there, and I got to watch them, and I got to be on the floor, and they saved me a hat. So they've treated me really well. They've treated me like more than a fan, and I never asked for any of it. And it's just been, it really shows how amazing of a program they are.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Jordan, you know, as we transition, you know, just really quick, where did your interest of being a journalist come from, and who do you look up to? I should rephrase that in a sense.
Yeah, you know, my interest from journalism came from when I was in high school. I needed an elective class, and I remember journalism was an option, and I went to my dad and I was like, "What's journalism?" And he was like, "Oh, like the school newspaper." I was like, "Oh, cool. I get to talk to people." And I loved writing always. So it was a different form of writing for me to be able to tell the story of my campus, and that is really where it started. I always wanted to actually write about fashion, and I was going to, you know, be in New York Fashion Weeks and covering all of that. But being a college athlete myself and playing basketball, once I graduated, I realized I still really miss being around basketball and talking about it and being in the midst of student athletes' lives and also the pros. So that's where that transition to sports journalism specifically came. And I have always grown up, you know, watching ESPN, watching the sideline reports, watching Robin Roberts, you know, do her thing on ESPN, but also on Good Morning America. Not seeing a ton of Black women in the space to talk about a league that is predominantly Black women. So that was also a motivation for me to step into the space of the WNBA. I've been a Sacramento Monarchs fan ever since I was a kid growing up in Sacramento. So my love for the W has been from the beginning, really. I'm a little height challenged, so I knew my WNBA dreams were not going to come into fruition. So this is the next best thing, honestly.
I like that. And you know, when you how did Queen of Off the Courts, how did that come to fruition?
Yeah, so Queens of the Court, it was a brainchild of Lena Glazer, who was an executive producer at Odyssey Sports. She had always had this vision of having a WNBA podcast that was like on her dream board to bring to Odyssey. And she reached out to me to see if I would host. In those early stages, we went through a couple different options for co-hosting. At that point, I had just interviewed Cheryl Swoops for a Just Women Sports article, and we didn't talk about basketball, not even one time. We talked about how she has, it's like beyond gardening. She has like a farm in Texas. Like she has chickens and every type of vegetable that you can have. She has cows. They have like a homestead. They, grow and eat their own food on their own land. That is so cool to me. And yes, she is a Hall of Famer in basketball, but I talked about everything off the court. And it was a really fun conversation and we got along really well. So I told our executive producer, I said, let's ask Cheryl. Like maybe she'll do it. We both were like, probably not, but it's worth asking. And now here we are in our second season. It is so much fun. Me and Cheryl are friends, and it's so cool to be able to say that my job is to talk to a Hall of Famer every week and talk about the WNBA. That seems unreal to me. But what we're trying to do with Queens of the Court is have a different opinion and a different spotlight on the W, where it is coming from a Hall of Famer's perspective. And I am definitely lobbing questions to Cheryl to make sure she is really telling us what's going on beyond the league. And it's the official podcast for the WNBA. So we're just making sure to spotlight the league, spotlight the players and its people. And it's been really, really fun.
Go ahead, Brenden.
Yeah, my question would be like, if you're just starting out as a journalist, because I'm like, I say just starting out, but I've been like kind of writing since 2021, but I'm still kind of new because I've never done it before. So my question would be like, what advice would you have for someone starting out in journalism or just starting out in writing and telling these stories?
Well, one, you guys are doing a great job. This is a really cool setup, and having a podcast is such a great, I think it's so cool because everyone can have a podcast. Your voice matters and you're creating content, on TikTok, on Instagram, on X, all of those places are places to lift up everyone's voices, and you have something unique to bring to the space. That's always my advice to people starting out. What can you bring differently? When I was at a really big organization, they were all talking about NBA and men's college basketball, and I was like, wait, how can you be a sports publication, not have the W, not have women's basketball? So I saw what was missing in a space and really was able to fill that void. And I think that's also one way to always get hired, when you say, hey, you don't have something and I personally can bring something to you. So that's always something to keep in mind. And also the idea of, your voice is important and it matters. And however you get that story out there, podcasting, writing, video, it is needed and deserves to be shared. People always love talking about themselves, so they will say yes. And being able to, just bring something new to a space is the great place to start when you are looking to be a creative or in this journalism world.
And as we transition into the W, this is we're off to an interesting start of the season. Week one, just like who do you think so far, coming off the off season, has caught your eye so far?
So many. I just want to say too, just this boom coming into this season is like nothing I have seen before, but I'm so glad that, I'm already in it and I've been in it for quite some time now, repping the W. So seeing all these new fans and new eyes, it has been so much fun. It's like when you love something so much and whether it's a product or a food or a restaurant, and then people try it and they're like, wait, this is actually good. I'm like, I told you. So that's how I feel about the WNBA. So we are here. The season is starting. A couple people come to mind when you say that. I think Connecticut looked so like mid-season form already. And I think, I have my power rankings on WNBA.com. Those will be coming every week. I have Connecticut at 3 right now. Like, they do not have a rookie on their roster. So they are experienced. You have Duana Bonner coming in year 14 looking like a spry, year 2 player, looking healthy, looking great. They have Bree Jones back, which you think of Connecticut last year, that was their missing piece. And now she's back and healthy. Alyssa Thomas is starting off with a triple-double. I'm like, DeJounte had Caitlin Clark in hell in clamps on the defensive end. So one thing I love about all these eyes coming to, maybe you're just coming for Caitlin Clark, or maybe you're just coming for Angel Reese, you're going to see how great the other 143 players in this league are. And that's what Connecticut said. They said, this is an opportunity. We don't get a lot of, nationally televised games in prime time. Let us show what we can do as a unit. And Stephanie White just has them in sync with a finals. Their eyes are on the finals. Now, if everybody can stay healthy, that's going to be the key for them. But right now, I really like what I'm seeing from Connecticut.
Go ahead, Brenden.
Yeah, right. I can just like piggyback off of that. Like you said, like they're on a finals run. Like, think about where they were before last season and the injuries that they had. They went to the finals. So like they are that talented of a team. Dejanay Carrington, even before, you can go back to her college days, she's one of my favorite players in this league. She really, really is. And that's before she locked down Caitlin Clark. So just the fact that she was able to rise up to the task and defend such a good player is incredible. I'd also, if I were to say something to the Caitlin Clark fans out there that are like strictly there to watch Caitlin Clark, like, you're going to see a lot of really good and elite defenders like that on her, because on the scouting report, they're going to assign their best defender to Caitlin Clark, because that's just how you need to defend her. And then Aaliyah Boston, she had a good game as well. But my team that I would say is underrated, and I think they could sneak into the playoffs or even be like a bottom tier playoff team, is Minnesota. I think team chemistry really was negative for Seattle, because they have a lot of new players on their team. But damn, Minnesota looks good. They they look good. Alana Smith, of course, she has a career day against Seattle. But yeah, and then Nafisha Collier, she could be a dark horse for MVP, I think. So, and she's a popular vote for MVP. But Minnesota looks like a dark horse for sure.
Yes.
I agree. Jordan, I'm just curious, will Washington be number 12 or 11 on your power rankings? Could we be nice just this week?
They are number 12 coming into my first week. I am so sorry about that. And here's the thing. My husband was with you. He was against me, but somebody has to be at the bottom. I think that's where I'm at right now. I'm so sorry that it has to be Washington, but someone has to be at the bottom.
That's
and
fair.
And what I'm sure your argument is as well, they were a playoff team last year. How does that drop them all the way down? And I think it's because I just don't know. I have a question mark hovering over them. I don't know what they can be. And so the positive spin, because I am a very positive person to a fault, is that they can only go up from here. So the rankings are going to shift every week and they can only improve. So
no, I agree.
hope that they prove me wrong.
I mean, the only thing I would say, I would kind of counter argue your husband's point about they made the playoffs last year, but and they were injuries last year, and so realistically, they should not have made the playoffs last year. Last year was, and shout out to Kareem Copeland for the Washington Post. We had this conversation. Like, last year was just the middle of the table. They're pushing the chips, and then this year is kind of not a rebuild, but a reset. I'm just not sold on them. I think they'll win 15 games and they won't make the playoffs. I think they're not going to be like Indiana last year. They're not like that. I mean, they've got pieces, but they're not a competitive team. I mean, if they make the playoffs, I think that's a positive. But I still have questions on Eric. I still have questions on this roster. So
yes, those are all fair questions to have. And I think with Washington, and you mentioned the fever as well, you know, in years past, when you watch the WNBA, there was kind of this huge gap between teams. It was the top, the cream of the crop, and then it was the bottom who were unwatchable. Like Indiana, a couple years ago, it was like, okay, I don't even want to watch this team because it's just bad basketball. Now they are a good team, but teams are better. And that's Washington too. They're not terrible. You have Shakira Austin, you have Brittany Sykes. Like, they're not bad to watch. There's just better teams. And that's just an unfortunate way of how it's going. I think of the new teams coming in, the expansion teams. They're going to be bad for a little bit because there's teams that are going to be more established, better, have more pieces, more cohesiveness. They're going to gel more. But that doesn't mean that Washington is trash and everybody on there is bad. Other teams are just better and have more weapons at their disposal. So that's my thoughts on Washington. I'm so sorry to give you the bad.
No, it's all good. And you actually, that's when I wanted to transition a question. You know, we all know as of next year we'll have the Golden State Valkyries. Now, we all seen the last couple of years, we've seen some great talent, you know, unfortunately being cut from teams. And, you know, not next year, but the following year, 26, we'll possibly get Toronto, more than likely Toronto, and then maybe another city. Do you think expansion fixes these issues?
It definitely helps. It definitely helps. What we are wanting in the WNBA is more jobs, more options available. And so when you have 12 more roster spots coming next year, that's huge. Just think about all of the players that got waived. You could make a team just on the players that had gotten waived, and they would be a competitive team. There are so many talented players, especially what we just saw in college. It breaks our heart when we think that their road has to end in training camp. That's just not fair. So the first step would be bringing in new franchises that give those opportunities, because there's going to be allocation drafts. So the franchises are going to be able to kind of take their pick a little bit from current players, current teams. So they're going to have established players as well as new players coming into the league. So it's not just going to be an all rookie team or just all players who haven't played in the W for a few years. It's going to be a mix of both. Who is going to be that face of the franchise for the Valkyries? We don't know. There's a lot of, I love throwing out the rumor that it's going to be Sabrina Ionescu because she's from the Bay Area, and that would just be really fun. But I don't know if the Liberty is going to let that happen. But it's
going to be Jordan Robinson.
You know, I play in some old lady leagues, but I don't think my stats are posted on Basketball Reference, so I don't know if I qualify. But no, it's gonna be really cool. And I think the other part about expansion is that there are 12 roster spots right now. If we can get it to 13 on every team, that's huge. Like, that is one more spot that can be reserved for injuries or for, just having a practice player, having somebody know the system, and then when somebody gets injured, just be able to slide right in. So there are a big desire to just get more women on the payroll, so that it's not, if an injury happens, if an overseas commitment happens, if something happens, you're just kind of scrambling and finding somebody else to slide in on a 10-day or a limited contract, but just to have these contracts be more solidified all season long. That's the hope, but I'm excited for expansion. Hopefully, Philly is that other city that gets brought up a lot. I think Philly would love a WNBA team. So that's, fingers crossed on that.
Absolutely. Baltimore as well should be on that list, but I doubt it. You go ahead. Go ahead, Brenden.
Yeah, I also gotta throw Portland on there.
Yes.
I gotta travel less. I gotta travel. Seattle's like 3 hours away from me. Portland's like a half an hour away from me. So I gotta travel west for WNBA games. But what should, if you're a current or new watcher of the WNBA this year, what should you do to help with, or how can you do your part to help the expansion of the league, or help progress that even further than, I believe they said 16 to 18 teams by 2028. So how can, if you're a current or like new WNBA watcher, what can you do, or how can you do your part to help expand the league even further?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Because I think a lot of people don't know what to do, and they just feel like turning on the TV is all they can do, which it is a good part, because that is, we've seen the boom of, we got to report these viewership numbers and we want to see the records that are being broken. Caitlin Clark's, record was broken just the other day on her opening night. So turning on the TV helps. Like, it really does help. But also showing up to these games, all of these sold out crowds and sold out arenas, and moving to NBA arenas are really, really good. That goes back to those opening days of the league. Everyone kind of started out really big and then we went small. Now we're going back to the big arenas, and that's exciting. That means that we can get back to 16 teams and get back to where we were. So all of that helps. I think also just talking about it more casually, right? Like, that's where the water cooler conversations of NBA and baseball and football, that's where it kind of grows. And even if it's not turning into a super fan, you will know more and be more educated and ask more questions once you have those innocent, casual conversations. So I think of, an office setting, and there was a buzzer beater by Arike Gumbawale the night before, and somebody's like, "Hey, did you catch that Dallas Wings game? That Arike, didn't she go to Notre Dame? Like, didn't she do those buzzer beaters in the Final Four? Yeah, I know her. She's a hooper. I gotta check that out next time." That is gonna grow the game. Like, as small as that sounds, that is going to push the conversation forward of more fans of the W, and to be put on notice that these women can hoop. So that is something that might seem minuscule, but just telling your friends, telling your family, taking your family to a game, because games are so much fun to go to. Just went to a Sparks game last night. They're just a blast. So I'm happy that the narrative is changing to, oh, we have to help. Like, where's the GoFundMe for the WNBA? Like, no, this is a business, and this is where money is growing for other businesses and brands. We're seeing that change. The money from big time brands are pouring in because they see the investment, they see the return of investment. So as a fan, your return of investment is also going to be great because you're going to get great basketball, great conversation, great talking points at the water cooler. So yes, that is what my advice would be to them.
Go ahead, Brenden.
It's also a great point that you brought up, like the brands and everybody that is now investing into the W, because a lot of conversations I get into when I talk about the WNBA, it's often because of NBA fans or basketball fans would be like knowing I'm a WNBA fan, they would say like, oh, the WNBA is funded by the NBA if they don't make a profit every year, and if the NBA didn't basically babysit them every year, then they would just go under. And I just I sit there in silence and don't say anything, and it's true, but like it's growing. Like this week is growing by the year, and it's growing especially like this year exponentially. And more brands are investing in this league and are investing in these players, and it's it's still a young league. I've heard many people talk about it's we're in our 28th year now, and so it's still a young league. And I've also heard comparison conversations like, look at where the NBA was in their 28th year. Like it's nowhere near it's nowhere near as popular as the WNBA is right now. So it's still, and I think I've heard Kathy Engelbert say that as well.
Yes, I was gonna say that. I was gonna say that is your go-to rebuttal. Always say that when people talk about it. 28 years versus 77 years, 78 years for the NBA. There is no comparison, and that is an unfair comparison to compare a 28-year-old's career to a 77-year-old's career. If that was a person, you're not comparing them together. Right. So I always say that as my go-to. I always say that the NBA was losing money at that time. Boston Celtics was running the board every single year. People were bored of watching the NBA, and then a Magic and Bird rivalry came, and there was this boom. And then Michael Jordan came, and then there was this boom, and everybody knew Michael Jordan's name and turned on the TV to watch the NBA, and the NBA profited off of his name, image, and likeness like crazy. And so that's exactly what the WNBA is doing right now. A lot of people are upset with all of the fanfare and everything that Caitlin is getting, but they're a business and they're saying, hey, this is making us money. People know her. They're going to associate her with us now. Let's put her in the forefront. It's a business. That's what you have to do. And that's exactly what the NBA did with Magic and Bird. And it helped soar the league into a new level. And that's what the WNBA is doing right now. So use all of those talking points when you hear someone not knowing what they're talking about and saying that.
Yeah, of course.
That's why I have Brenden as my co-host. He's my secret weapon. Most people, I keep that under the table. No, I'm just kidding. But, you brought up a good point. I know we got a couple more minutes. As the W is growing, we're seeing media that hasn't covered a W game, even college, because I also cover the Maryland women's basketball team, and there was I wouldn't even call it. I call it a heating point of a game where you're competing. There's going to be some ruffle of the feathers, and one of our guards, Bree McDaniel, had about 5 articles published by news companies that don't even watch basketball. Now, as you're seeing, we had the reporter in Indianapolis with the Caitlin Clark thing, making that doing what he should not have been doing.
Yeah.
And then now you're seeing like last night, forgot which it was on Twitter, Angel Reese's first dunk. Like, how you as part of the media, like how do you feel like as eyes are growing onto the W, do you feel like storytelling, the message can get messier, as especially now with Caitlin, Angel, and the fans that are coming into the league? Do you think the ethics in journalism changes, or does it stay the same? I'm sorry if that's a long-winded question.
No, that's an interesting question. I think I think the way that it has been covered needs to change, in the sense that if you are a newspaper who's never published an article about women's basketball ever, and you maybe have in the past done more of a shock headline, you need to change the way that you are doing everything revolving it. Meaning you need to bring in a writer who covers women's basketball and has a track record of that. Their resume reflects that. That's what needs to be put at the forefront. I think that whole situation with Caitlin Clark and that reporter showed that. You need to have a woman who covers women's basketball to be able to be in those spaces and not make it weird. And also just the gotcha headlines is a little bit of what I just mentioned the WNBA is doing. Other newspapers, other media outlets are also businesses. And if they see a profit from views, if they see a profit from clicks, they are going to put the thing that is the trendiest in place. And it is a little bit of a placeholder. Like it's a revolving door of whoever is most popular at that time. And it's goes with everything. If everyone is talking about air fryers, they're going to put air fryers in the headline because it's SEO. You know, they are trying to get the clicks and the viewership. But beyond that, I think that's what we're talking about. We need to go beyond those clicky headlines and just mentioning Caitlin Clark's name. What are the stories behind, again, the other 143 players in this league? They have amazing, great stories. So having somebody who has a journalistic background, has a women's sports background, knows their women's basketball to come onto your platform is only going to lift you up, because it shows that you know what you're talking about and you're not getting dragged by WNBA Twitter, because it shows that you cared enough to put someone on the payroll that can accurately articulate what is going on in the women's basketball space, instead of just like, okay, we need to put up something quick about Caitlin Clark because that's what everybody else is doing. I actually think that's what you shouldn't do, because it's going to get buried in search results. But hey, that's not that, you got to pay me for that kind of advice. But I mean, that's just what I think would happen. Adding another layer of dimension. Yesterday's price is not today's price. That's what we say all the time with coverage of the WNBA, because you do have people like myself and a lot of great, hardworking WNBA journalists who have been in the trenches. There are so many all over the country that are doing this on their own dime, their own time. And if you are a publication and you need that filled, like, go to those people first, rather than somebody else who has never, who covers NBA or NFL and just say, hey, sports, write about the WNBA. It's not the same thing, because I can't write anything on football or baseball. Like, I want it to make sure that my expertise is highlighted. So hopefully that's what is the next wave for these companies, to get past the clickbaity headlines and make sure it is about the players and the league.
Brenden?
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that. And like the growth of the league, there needs to be like people educated about this league. And if you don't know much about the league but you support women's basketball, get educated. That's how I got into covering the WNBA. And back when Breanna Stewart played at UConn, her last game was my first game ever of watching a women's basketball game. And it's the same thing that everybody hears, like, oh, it's this great player going for an undefeated season. She's an incredible player. You got to watch her. Okay, I'll watch the national championship. And so I watched her, and I remember saying, like, I wish there was a place for her after college, because I didn't know about the WNBA back then. And I always said, I wish there was a place for her after college. So fast forward, I didn't pay attention to women's basketball that much until 2020, when the bubble happened. I needed something to do before the NBA season. So I'm like, okay, I'll give the WNBA a shot. Lo and behold, my local team has Breanna Stewart. So I was like, oh, okay, that's what happened to her. And then I didn't know. All I knew about the Seattle Storm was Breanna Stewart, but I got educated. I learned about Sue Bird. I learned about Jewel Lloyd. I learned about our team. And looking back at that, I'm just like, wow, we really had a defensive juggernaut in the 2020 Seattle Storm. It's taken me like 2 years to figure out how defensive, that's probably one of the greatest defensive teams of all time, because I learned about what they can do. I learned about the players that they are now. I've watched the league enough to know all of this stuff. So it's just about getting educated if you're not already. And I think people in this that are just getting into this space because it's so popular with Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, whoever, needs to at least educate themselves somewhat. I'm not saying like go that in depth or watch that many past games or learn about the history as far. Just learn a little bit of it at a time. Mm-hmm. And I've heard a lot, like, you can get 1% better every day. That's a motto I've heard a lot, and I try to do every day.
Yeah, just that's a good motto for new WNBA fans.
Exactly. Just like do that. Like just learn a little bit more every day, and by the time that it's your time, you'll be ready and prepared for anything. So
I like that, Brenden.
What a great story about Breanna Stewart. That was awesome.
Yeah, isn't that cool? I love that story.
Thank you for sharing that.
Is there, for you, Jordan, is there a moment like where it caught on for you? Like, I know you said you grew up a Sacramento Monarchs fan, but like, when did it like click? Like, I could definitely, I see this going somewhere.
Yeah. I do have to run, so I will make this quick. But I would say for the league in general, yeah, watching the Sacramento Monarchs and seeing them win that championship in 2005, I was like, I am a fan for life. I want to make this very clear, I'm not a Kings fan. I'm a Lakers fan. So I grew up in Sacramento being a Kings hater, but a Monarchs lover. It was a very rough time to explain that to people, but I was going to say I bleed purple, so I just wanted to make sure I made that clear. It was Monarchs purple only. And then they take the team away from me. I'm in 5th grade. I'm heartbroken, but I still followed those players. Tisha Penicheiro was my favorite player of all time, so she went on to the Sparks. And then that's when I started learning about all the Sparks players, because I just had the poster of all the Monarchs players and I just really knew all of them. But it kind of forced me to expand my knowledge of the WNBA because of all those players left in an allocation draft. So yeah,
I like that. So just tell everybody what's going on this week with the podcast. What you got else going on this week?
Yeah, so there are more WNBA games this week. It's still opening week, some great matchups. We're recording this on a Thursday, so Indiana versus New York is tonight. I will have the popcorn ready. It's going to be amazing. And then
Who do you have winning that game?
I have the Liberty winning, but I actually predict Caitlin's going to have a really good game because New York does not have I mean, they're going to put Benai Jelani on her, but Benai Jelani can't play the entire game. And if there is a switch, Caitlin is lighting up those switches. So New York does not have the perimeter defending like Connecticut does. That's why they should have kept Jalen Sherrod. Brenden, I know you know that Pac-12 connection. I was really rooting for her to be on that team. But yeah, you can follow me on X at Hey Jordan R or on Instagram at Jordan Liggins, my maiden name. And check out on WNBA.com every week for my weekly rankings. And there's also a video component in the app. So make sure to check it out.
I'll leave all that in the description for the viewers. And also, too, just to make sure, I'll also, this upcoming college season, to convert the both of you as Maryland Terrapin fans, especially for the women's basketball side. Now that the Pac-12 is officially dissolved and it's now.
I know. Maryland. Oh, my gosh, man.
But Jordan, thank you so much for joining us. Continue to do great things. Again, huge fan of the podcast. We're really amazed at the work you're doing so far, especially in the women's basketball community. Keep up the good work. And we hope to have you on here again someday.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. Thanks for reaching out. This was so amazing. So thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for coming on. It was so good to meet you.
So great to meet you. Thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good one. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Man, that was awesome. What do you think,
Oh
Brenden?
my gosh. Wow. Just, I've already spoken about the Pac-12 side of this and the women's college basketball side, but what a great person. What a great person. What a great basketball mind to have. And I think we learned a lot today.
Absolutely.
I really think we learned a lot today. More than I already knew. So
absolutely. I mean, when you sent me the message on Twitter, I was like I was a little nervous. I was sitting there like, oh, I think she's going to respond. Like, oh, this is Jordan Robinson who works with the great Cheryl Swoops. Like,
right.
It's all sometimes it's sometimes tough to reach out and ask, hey, can we interview you, different things like that. But just stepping out on faith and taking a chance. I mean this was awesome. And you spoke on growing there a little every day. My love for the W, it came back in really 2013, and it wasn't the 3 to C. It was Taylor Hill. If people remember that year, the year before, Washington actually finished with the worst record, and they finished in the top 4. And the Mystics had the 4th overall pick, and we missed out on getting Skylar Diggins, Elaine Deladon, and Brittany Griner. And that was the year Mike Tebow from Connecticut actually came in as head coach and took Taylor Hill with the 4th overall pick out of the Ohio State. And for those few years, I think she had a good career. Yeah, there was a couple injuries. I wish that she was still in the league. And I think from her up until we won the championship, I give her flowers because she, I think, set the tone for what the franchise should look like. And I think without her play, unfortunately, when we lost to you guys, when she got hurt and then Deladon got hurt in the 18 matchup, that next year, I feel as though she kind of played a role in us getting the championship next year, 19. So that's where really my love for the W starts. And and then like you said, just growing it one day at a time. That's where it starts. So we're looking also at the rest of this week. What are you liking so far in these games?
I want to see how Seattle bounces back against Minnesota. Obviously, it was a tale of two halves. The first game, they played a pretty close half, and then the turnovers and lack of team chemistry, because the whole thing is new kind of showed out in the second half, which led to it being a blowout. If you look at the box score, it was actually a much closer game until the second half. And Coach Quinn is really good at adjusting. She's really good at adjusting in like these baseball type series. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most. I'm looking forward to seeing if they play the matchup. She likes to play the matchup, and she likes to experiment a lot. So I'm not shocked that Victoria Vivians is starting because I think they really like her. But bringing Jordan off the bench is interesting, and getting her minutes from the bench is interesting. So I'm interested to see who or how the rotation works the next game. Also going to be tuned into Caitlin Clark against New York. That's going to be a really good test. I think Caitlin Clark, listen, first 2 games in the league, she's facing some really good competition to start her career, and that's going to make her even better. Like, to face this type of competition, like Connecticut, like Jordan said, like they're a finals contending team because they've got experience and they're they just went to the finals. So, and then New York, who was also just in the finals the back years. The last 2 back-to-back finals teams. Caitlin Clark's facing in the first 2 games. I think that could be really valuable as a player getting used to this league or just getting into this league.
No, in all seriousness, Kayla will be fine. Let's give her some grace. I mean, it was her first game. And also too, let's keep it real. They were ready for her. It's not the transition from college, and this is not just with the W. This is with all sports. The transition from college to pros are 2 totally different things. I think this is where Christy sides. This is where your coaching comes in. I think she's going to do great things with her and develop her. And not just her, Leah too. Leah didn't have the greatest game neither. But this is where, again, when you're young, this is where you have a coach like Christy sides. Okay, this is what we need to work on. This is what I want to see better. And also too, you got the vets there as well. Kelsey Mitchell, Erica Wheeler. They're the leaders. And that's where the leadership part comes in. I'm not really sold on right now on New York. They have a great roster, but I don't think it's enough to compete for a championship. My sleeper, if you saw the first episode, is Connecticut to get to the finals. Stewie just didn't look like Stewie. And I've seen this last year, even the year before. She has these slow starts and then picks it up. I don't know why it's like that. That's just me. But yeah, Washington. I still haven't finished looking at the rest of the tape because I needed to look at it with a fresh pair of eyes. I'm trying to figure out how we had a lead and then we lost. So
I was rooting so hard for Washington too. You have no idea. I was rooting so hard for them.
Painful. It's painful.
Yeah.
But
go
ahead.
I wanna speak on something that Jordan said about, like, we were talking about the coverage of women's basketball and all that stuff.
Sure.
And something that she said, like the coverage of women's basketball could be better. That's exactly what Skylar Diggins-Smith said. That's exactly what she said.
I'm glad you brought that up. Exactly.
I was going to while she was there, but I just didn't get to it. But I wanted to bring that up before we ended because she said that exact same thing in her media availability that I was a part of, and that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you actually brought that up because, especially with Skylar, for her coming back into Seattle, I think Seattle is, I think that's a good place for her. And especially, I think kind of how the last couple of years have gone for her. I think how the media kind of has, she's really came into the league. it's kind of just vilified her. And I liked her comment she made in media availability. And and that's also too, Jordan mentioned as well. We got to move on from, stories of looking for clicks. For example, I think it was can't remember what article it was, but it was something that made absolutely no sense to me. It was just like I can tell you haven't watched a game. Oh no, it wasn't a game. It was Pat McAfee show. They've got some great players, and it's like, well, if you would have paid attention, you got some great players. We've had great players the last few years. Where have you been? You see what I'm saying? It's stuff like that.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a growing league. There are people old and new who are covering it, and like I said earlier, like the new players need to learn just a little bit. Just be willing to learn just a little bit before you open your mouth and say the wrong thing.
Yep.
But yeah, my thing with Skylar is I'm not too familiar with her game. I just knew like she's a point guard that fits our culture, and Seattle needs a point guard. I'm super happy that we got this particular player. I know somewhat of how the situation in Phoenix ended. It didn't end well, and she took a season off after having her child, and with this opportunity to be somewhat close to her in media availabilities and stuff, I wanted to see like why fans might have ill will towards Skylar, and
Yep.
I have been a part of two media availabilities. Her opening, her intro presser with NECA when they were introduced to the team, and her media availability. And it's about an hour total that I was a part of, and I didn't ask one question. I just sat back on my Zoom and watched. And after hearing all the information I did, not only do I say like, why do people hate Skylar, but I'm sitting here knowing the Seattle fan base and knowing how passionate of a fan base they are, and I'm screaming from the top of from the rooftops, Seattle fans are going to love Skylar Diggins-Smith. They are going to love her. And you know who Skylar reminds me of in the NBA world? She reminds me of Kyrie Irving. And I'm not talking about on the court and off the court is different for both players, right? But there's still, the media is still villainizing them to some degree, and both situations are different, but at the end of the day, they just want to go out and ball. And why I compare her to Kyrie Irving is because she was asked, what did you do in the season that you had? What you had a whole season to kind of get back into shape, and what other things did you do? She said the coolest answer I've ever heard. She said, I just watch basketball. And she said she will watch any basketball, rec league, high school, college, WNBA, NBA, G League, and she said that she got to watch the league from a fan's perspective and kind of get to see what we all see, but also at the same time, what team needs my help? What team can I contribute on the most? And she looked at Seattle and said, "This is a good team, has a lot of pieces, has a lot of good talent. I think I could fit really well here." So I really love that. That's answer. Okay. I think Seattle has more pieces for her.
Yeah,
but
most definitely.
And they both want to play with Jewel. That's why I've spoken on this before. That's why I think the re-signing of Jewel when it happened was so key, because it brought free agents in. Yep. So also the organizational impact of developing or building up facilities as cool as it looks. Just that it's there, separate from the call, or separate from the stadium, is just huge for that development. That's what brings free. That's a key thing that brings free agents in. That's why you see so many good players go to Vegas and Phoenix and Seattle and Indiana. Like, they have the facilities built for these built for these athletes. So that's why you're seeing all these key free agents go to places like that. So yeah, it's I learned a lot today, and it was a good conversation that we had.
For sure. Actually, I wish I would have had that opportunity to ask her about Vegas, but maybe next time for sure. It was all
Yeah,
good.
I wanted to ask her about the facilities part, because that would have been, I would be curious to hear her answer on that.
Yep. So what's happening with BTL hoops? What's happening this week?
Yeah, we're covering the WNBA. I just put out a piece on Nika Mule. It's probably one of the it was a great piece.
You're done with the Dallas Mavericks?
Yeah, I'm not covering the Mavs. I'm trying to stay away from the NBA. I'm covering the playoff matchups.
Okay.
As they happen. So once the Western Conference and Eastern Conference finals come around, I'll do previews for both of those. But they're pretty like summarizing of the matchups.
Of the games. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. But I wanted to go more in depth on the WNBA and the impact, or the information around that league as well. But yeah, it's a new season, and I'm excited. I'm very excited.
Are there any updates on Nika? I know she's been trying to get her visa straight. Is there any updates on that?
Not any updates that I'm aware of. I do want to clear something up, because there could be confusion.
Please do.
Because trust me, there's a lot of UConn fans, and a lot of fans, like, as much transition from college to pro that Caitlin Clark has, Nika Mule has as well. So it's
talking about Leah Edwards too.
Yeah, so trust me, they're a passionate fan base as well. But I'm sure you've caught a lot of them on your stuff. But the thing with Nika, because she has an issue with her work visa, and that may confuse people, because she didn't get to travel with the team to Canada because of her work visa. But it confuses people because she played the preseason game against Phoenix. Well, when she played at the game that she played, she was still technically a student. So
yes, because she didn't graduate yet.
Yeah, she didn't graduate yet until after that game. Which, little side note, amazing ceremony that they did for Nika. That was so cool to see. If you haven't seen that, please do.
Wait a minute, I'm confused, because so was she not a student when they went to Toronto for the preseason game?
She was. I think it was.
Because if she was a student, she should have been able to play.
Yeah, they've been really plain about, or really basic about, hey, she's having issues with her work visa.
Yeah, that's a little fishy. Because I would have thought, because she was a student up and right before the preseason, she should have had, because I think UConn, I think this season went overseas. I think somewhere to play overseas for a tournament.
Croatia, right?
Croatia, I think it was. So I was
because Nika went home.
Okay.
Yeah. So that, and then when she graduated college, it now becomes a work visa. So
so that takes time.
Yeah, and so that takes some time to get figured out. But I think it's something that the Storm should. I bet they saw this coming.
Yeah, they did. But they're patient.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how long it carries out.
If I'm being honest, because I just recently got a passport. That could take about 30 days, maybe, depending on how fast it's processed.
Yeah. Well, and I, she needs to gain experience, and the only experience you can gain is on the court.
It's on the court.
And I'm curious when she gets back on this team, or when she's able to play on this team, if she is, or like where she is in the rotation, because I'm kind of nervous about her playing backup point guard minutes right away because she's a rookie, but it'll be interesting to see. Another point of confusion is she, or there's a couple of interluding points here. One, she was able to go to the game. She was there behind the bench. I saw her sitting next to the PR guy, Jeff. He's a really good guy. She was sitting right next to him and watching and cheering for her team. But also, she arrived to the stadium about an hour and a half, or 2 hours, somewhere around there, before the game. And it wasn't announced until an hour before tip-off that she was out because of a work visa issue. And I'm curious to why they dragged that out for so long.
I'm not trying to make no big deal of it because I believe it'll get resolved.
Yeah,
but that is a little suspect.
I just say that on the communication aspect. I'm not saying like
on the communication aspect.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
That I agree with, because I mean she can't, because she can travel with the team. She just can't play.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious to see, because I like your point about her not being able to travel to Canada, especially because it's out of the country and they've done that before.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see if she travels to Minnesota.
She should be able to.
I think she should be able to. I just don't think she can play.
Yeah, I think you can travel with the team, but you can't play without the visa.
Right.
So I mean, she could still do like little thick travel, because I mean they're just going to say, well, what are you doing? Oh, I'm traveling. She's still a part of the team.
Right.
So, and if they can't, I'm sure the team will accommodate her in any way that they can. So,
and she can practice too. Like she's been practicing. So that's another thing that it's a new thing. Like it's a new issue for players to get taken care of. I'm just saying, like, someone's never been out, at least since I've been a fan, with a work visa, especially in the regular season. So it's a generally new thing.
Right?
Yeah.
And if we're being honest too, her probably, if she used her embassy as well, they could put a rush on that. So you probably would see something before the month's over that it's approved. So.
Right. And that's kind of the point that I was going to make, is if there are fans who want to watch Nika play, like specifically Nika Mule, like stands, or UConn fans or whatever, that you're wanting to see Nika play in the WNBA. This is not a one game issue. This is not something that will take one game. The next game against Minnesota she'll play. Like, no, this is something that's going to be that's going to take a little while longer than one game. The question is how long? How long is this dragged out? And that's the thing that so if you're wanting to watch Nika play in her first WNBA game, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know when she's going to play. I don't know how long they're going to drag this out.
I'm sure it'll all get handled in the meantime. But for now, where she made the team, a well-deserved.
Yeah.
Rabina Westbrook should be on the roster, but that's for that episode. So,
yeah, I just wanted to say really quick because I'm not going to be in that episode. That yes, she should.
Yes, it's
let her
definitely
take care of her injury first, and then yes,
for sure, because I'm a big fan of hers. But week 1 is after Friday. No, week 1 is done Sunday, so you got to sloth the games. I cut off Jordan as she was talking about New York. My apologies, Jordan. We have tonight Indiana versus Liberty, New York. Then tomorrow we got Washington, Connecticut, Seattle, Minnesota, and then this weekend rematch again, Indiana, New York, Las Vegas versus Los Angeles, Chicago versus Dallas, and Atlanta and Phoenix. And then to end off your weekend, it is Seattle versus Washington. Brenden. No, it should be a good game.
I do have one question because our team's made a trade that we haven't talked about.
We'll talk about that. I think we're going to talk about that in the next episode. Okay. Well, actually, no. Let's talk about it now. Okay. I don't know she's going to be using the rotation. I think she's a great 3-point shooter, but I don't see where she fits because someone either is going to lose minutes or someone's getting cut.
Yeah,
that's the best way I see it. But I mean, it's not a point. It's not. I mean, I trust Brittany Sykes to run point, but
yeah.
I don't need any more shooters. I think you've got shooters. You got plenty of them. I think you're comfortable with them, but I think Jade Melbourne, is definitely someone who could just catch and shoot off the dribble, off the ball. Great shooting. But we're talking about potential, But again, right. Who's losing minutes in that rotation? And then not forget, we traded Queen and Egbo to Connecticut for Betty Hattar, and she's even not even on the roster. So,
right. Yeah. I'll say this: like, you might be getting a future minded player when thinking about why you got her in Jade, but I got to tell you, man, like, I was heartbroken when I heard that we traded Jade because she is such a fun person. She's such a fun, personality. Her on the bench, celebrating the team after every bucket is just so infectious. She has an infectious smile and infectious personality. And so I'm really bummed that we traded Jade, and I've reached out to her a couple of times, and she's excited to still be in the W. She's sad to not be in Seattle anymore, but she's excited to still be in the W. So I'm happy for her. Please treat her well. Please treat her well, because she's such a good personality.
It ain't me, it's Eric. Yeah. Eric Tebow.
Yeah, right.
We'll see how. But I think it should be a good trade. But also, too, again, this is something else. We, if we had more time with Jordan, I mean, this is really kind of building off for next year because we really don't know what next year's going to look like. Everyone has signed 1 year, 2 year maxes,
right?
And the W I don't know what it looks like next year. So get players now with high potential and see where it goes. So,
right.
Yeah. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to conclude this episode of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. Be tuned in for some future episodes of Ravens and Commanders draft analysis, NFL draft grades. I know it's been a little bit since the NFL draft. And painfully, the Washington Mystics recap to the New York Liberty as we're getting ready for the game against Connecticut tomorrow. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll also leave Brenden Potts' Twitter in the description as well. I'll also leave Jordan's information, her Twitter, Instagram, and the link to Queens Off the Court podcast in the description as well. Please like, comment, again. Enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you're all having a great week. It is halfway through May already. And also, too, congratulations to the class of 2024 as for graduations. Best of luck to you all in your future endeavors. We're out of here. Peace. Stay up.
Thank you for tuning in to Big Nate Sports Talk. If you enjoyed that episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share the next big thing, the next up-and-coming sports journalist, Big Nate Sports Talk. It's on all the time, anytime.
And I want to thank you. All I want to do is say thank you for everything.